Hello, everyone. My name is Sydney Cherry, and today I'm going to be talking about me, if we're being honest. I'm going to be talking about my personal progress in my English course. So this is my Composition and Culture Part B. So this was my second semester English class, the second half of my first half. Obviously, that's why it's Part B. Just like the first time I did a progress report, I'm going to be talking about progress I made again, but in a different style. When I think about the progress I made throughout this semester, one of the first things that comes to my head is obviously the research paper that we've been working on. And this research paper was a huge assignment because we worked on it for the whole semester. We did discussion boards, we did workshops, things of that nature, some group discussions in class, outside of class, things like that. And I would say writing a research paper just in general is one of the biggest improvements, if not the biggest improvement I've made throughout the semester, because at the beginning of the semester, I had never written a research paper before. Last semester, we wrote some papers, but they weren't necessarily research papers. Those were more the multimodals that we focused on. But this semester, we were told we were going to be doing a research paper where we actually used library sources, online sources, peer-reviewed, things like that, and conducted a very strong research paper on a topic. I had never written a research paper in high school. I had written the common 5-paragraph essays for a class or an open-ended on a test or something related to a book we read in English or something of that nature, but never really any research papers where I had to go out and find sources in the library, outside of the library. I never had to write an annotated bibliography until this class. I didn't know how to do that until this class. I would say just writing a research paper in general is where I really improved, because as of the first semester, whenever we did our first project, I was struggling with straying away from the 5-paragraph essay format. Now I am more used to writing outside of the 5-paragraph essay format because I've written papers for some other classes where they don't want that format as well. But this research paper, at the beginning, I was really like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I've never written one before. I honestly felt like I was going to be very lost because based on the way other students were talking, it seemed like they had at least a little bit of an idea, and to be honest, I had no idea. I had never been presented with the opportunity of a research paper, so I was really, really nervous about finding sources. I thought it was going to be a lot more complicated than it was. I think that's where I improved as well. Usually when I would write essays in high school, I would use, you could say, resources as in book quotes and things like that, but it was never things that had to be peer-reviewed, things like that. One of the other improvements I made was finding scholarly sources, because I didn't know what that looked like at the beginning of the semester. We looked at a bunch of the videos and websites as in what's a good source and what kind of information is inside of a good source and what a website looks like to make sure that it's not for entertainment and it's for research, because I had never done that before. So I was really nervous, like I said, but I ended up finding some really good sources and they fit well with my paper. Another improvement that I think I made was writing an annotated bibliography, because again, I had never done that before. I had never done anything to do with a research paper before. So the annotated bibliography, I was like, this is kind of difficult, this is kind of hard. Had to find some resources, had to find the online sources, and then read the whole thing, pair the words together. I'm not gonna lie to you, in high school I did like the bare minimum. If I didn't have to read a book, I wouldn't read a book. If I didn't have to do this paper or do this homework, I wouldn't really do it. Or if I could write this paper without reading the book, or take this test or answer these questions without reading the book, that was my way to go, because I had a lot of other commitments. I didn't have time to, do that, and I figured if I can get away with it, I'm gonna get away with it. But then coming into this class, I could tell right off the bat that is not going to work. And I didn't want it to go that way. I obviously wanted to change my habits. But I think I put together a really well annotated bibliography, especially for not knowing what it was. And I used the class sources, how we talked about it in class, how we practiced in class, and synthesizing our sources. I got really good at that. I improved well at that. I think that the easy reader that we purchased, the book that we have, really helped me write my annotated bibliography because it gave exact steps as to what your sources should look like in terms of the author and the title and the date and things like that. And then it also helped with actually writing the paragraph that goes under each source, which turned out a lot better than I thought. When I submitted my annotated bibliography, I honestly thought I was going to get it back
with 1,000 markings on it,
but I didn't, thankfully. I think I really improved in regards of writing a research paper, finding sources, and then putting together an annotated bibliography. At the beginning of the class, one thing that I think I was already strong at was synthesizing sources because I had done it at the beginning in the first semester and I had done it in high school, not necessarily to the degree of a research paper, but I've always been pretty good at writing, not to toot my own horn. But I've always been pretty good at writing papers for any topic, including sources, things like that. So I was able to synthesize pretty easily. Obviously, I needed to work a little bit harder this time so that it could fit in with my research paper and compare and contrast a bunch of different opinions from a bunch of different researchers. But I think I did really well at that, to be honest. Something else that I could improve on, I know we haven't done much peer editing, but I have always struggled with peer editing. I've never really been good at looking at the bigger picture. Even when I look at my own papers, I've always looked at grammar, punctuation, things like that, repetitive words, starting sentences, introducing a quote, things like that. But I had never really been good at reviewing for the whole picture between myself or peers. I've never really been good at that. Let me think. Something I could improve on. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm struggling to think of something I can improve on. Oh, okay. I think an improvement I could possibly make, and not that it was a super bad thing that I did, but I think an improvement that I could make would be, fighting the other side of the argument. So usually this research paper tended to be an argument of something you stood for or didn't stand for, either side that you picked in the first place. But I think I struggled a little bit with defending the other side as well and looking at the other side and not being closed-minded. And not that I wanted to be closed-minded, but it was more of the fact that I was pretty set on my topic and pretty set about how I felt about it. So it was kind of hard to look at the other side and understand where they were coming from, and not because I wanted to be stubborn, but just because it was a little bit difficult to understand where these people had been coming from. But I think I could get better at that and actually taking everybody's opinions into consideration more. I think something else I could get better at would be writing more maturely. And that sounds a little bit silly because I do think I write okay. I mean, I think I write good. But in terms of being graded by a professor, especially an English professor, I would probably say that I could write a little bit more maturely, improve my grammar, as in what words I use, like my vocabulary, kind of stray away from the first, second, third, however, therefore, eventually, like the very common words that a lot of people use in their essays. I really want to expand on the words I choose and the layout that I do choose, rather than it being like, I believe this, here's my evidence, and sum it up with this. That's usually how body paragraphs go. And I think in this paper, I did a lot better at that, but I still think I could improve in that nature. But yeah, I had a lot of fun this semester. I honestly was surprised we worked on this project for so long because I was like, oh my goodness, that's a lot of weeks to work on one project, but the way it was spread out definitely helped me personally, at least. I'm not sure about everyone else, but taking our time with writing and taking our time with understanding each little part of a research project, starting with finding our sources, synthesizing our sources, all the practice we did, the annotated bibliography, the discussion boards, talking with our peers, getting some feedback. I think it was all laid out very, very well. And it personally did help me get better as a writer, especially because, like I mentioned before, I'd never written a research paper at all. And I think the way the class was laid out really helped me to improve. Other than that, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you liked it. And I hope you enjoyed my research paper and my progress report, if that's what you'd like to call it. But yeah, thanks for a great semester and have a great summer.